listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. To hear the full show each day, tune in to AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN or log in to accesswdun.com and click the Listen Live button from 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. Sitting with me this morning is Derek Dooley. Welcome.
Yeah, Martha, thank you for having me. It's good to get out. People start learning who I am and what I'm about. So I appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. And we are very happy to have him here today. And what we're going to do so that we can get the most questions in and the most of the time that we have with him between now and the bottom of the hour, if you have a question for Derek Dooley, please text it in at 770-535-2911. And then I will ask the question of him if we can work it into the conversation. But this is an informational thing, and we're going to learn a lot about Derek Dooley this morning. Derek, first of all, there's probably pluses and minuses with having a name that everybody knows. So tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Well, of course, I was born and raised right in Athens, Georgia. I went to Clark Central High School and just had a tremendous experience. A lot of people ask me, what was it like growing up with someone like my father who served this state for over 50 years. But I didn't know any different as a kid. I mean, you just grow up, you have the same friends as everybody else, and you go to high school like everybody else. But what you did learn was you learned a lot through an example, and you watched how both my father and my mother interacted and led and had so much respect for everybody they encountered, how it had so much devotion to service to the people of the state. And you don't realize it's making an impact on you until you get a little older, and you start really trying to do it the same way they did. So, listen, I'm very fortunate that I was able to grow around two parents like that, but hopefully someday I can sort of be the same kind of example for not only my kids but for younger people in general. So
tell us about your family and your journey here.
Of course, my wife, yes. Allison. Yes, we met. She actually is a doctor by trade, and most people don't know that I'm a lawyer by trade. So there was a point in my time I was at Georgia Law School, and Allison was at Medical College of Georgia. And, of course, we were going to live happily ever after as a doctor and a lawyer. And something started pulling me, Martha, when I was practicing law. It wasn't really what I was looking for in life. I wanted to lead and try to make a more positive impact in a different way. And, of course, I played football in college, and I grew up around the sport and just have a real passion for not the game itself, but just what the game does for so many people. And so, hey, I went from billing hours to making coffee in my first job in Athens, Georgia, between the hedges for Joe Kynes, who was the defensive coordinator. And so that began my journey. I started at the bottom and ended up having a great career.
So you did end up at Tennessee, right? And,
Of course, that's the lead. After, I have a 28-year career in coaching.
I know. But
I spent 32 months in Knoxville, Martha. That's all anybody wants to talk about.
That orange.
I know it.
It doesn't look good on anybody. Well, I can understand why you had to get out of there.
Yeah, that's right. One thing, I guess the Georgia fans probably didn't mind me much because they whooped up on me pretty good. But I also wore some purple at LSU, some crimson at Alabama. I wore a little gold in Missouri. And so, yeah, I traveled around the SEC and traveled around the NFL. I spent 9 years in the NFL. I was a 6 as a head coach and 9 years with Nick Saban, which many people will say that was my greatest accomplishment, being able to survive Nick Saban for 9 years.
So what do you think that tough life, because it is a tough life. If you look at anybody that's been in the coaching world, they're a lot of times changing jobs every year. They're moving sometimes every couple of years. You're moving your family around. You're moving your loyalties around. You're moving all this stuff. How do you see that relate to what you've learned so far in running for the United States Senate?
Well, interestingly, in football, you have sort of three constituents that you serve every day. The most important one is your players and their families. And those are the ones you're putting all your energy in. Those are the ones that you need to build a level of trust from people from all walks of life. It didn't matter what their race was, their religion, their politics, their income level. None of that mattered. You had to build a level of trust. You had to inspire them. And you had to work hard every day to try to make a positive impact in their lives. So that's no different than the people of Georgia. And so there is a lot of carryover from that standpoint. Of course, as a coach, you're always needing a lot of help financially. And so there's a lot of boosters that you need to meet and interact with. And as you know very well, Martha, I've learned that's a very important part of politics. And then, of course, there's the media, who you deal with every day. Some of them, of course, very positive, but most of them, they're trying to rip you up pretty good. And I had my fair share of it in 28 years. So there is a lot of carryover as it relates to people, because I may not know, quote, politics, as people say it, but I do know people. And that's what I've been doing for 30 years. And I think that's why once I get out and roll up my sleeves and start connecting with the Georgia people, they'll see why I'm doing this.
So I'm on a show on Fox 5 Atlanta called The Georgia Gang. And this past week, Phil Kent, who I've worked with for 30 years, he's a good guy. He told a story that you were on a trip in South Georgia, and agriculture is the number one business in Georgia, and that you said something like you didn't know what an H-1A visa was. Could you just share what actually happened and tell your side of that story?
Well, that's not what happened at all. And I do know what these visas are. I have been rolling up my sleeves and going all over the state, not only to spread my message, but to also learn more about what's going on with our industries, what's going on with the employers who are job creators, and how the federal government can help most. And, you know, our work and our labor force down in agriculture and in a lot of other segments in South Georgia and the coast, whether it's hospitality or construction, all these work permits and visas are a very important part of their labor force. And we got a lot of problems we need to continue to solve as it relates to the cost of doing business, as it relates to recruiting new labor. And so I'm naturally going to ask questions. To sit here and think that I'm going to go down there and know their business better than they do is a little bit ridiculous. And so, of course, I know what they're dealing with, but I don't know it in the way they do. So I'm asking a lot of questions, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can so I can better serve the people. And that's what I think we're missing. I don't think enough legislatures up in D.C. listen to the people of Georgia and truly try to help solve their problems. And so that's what I'm going to try to be as a candidate.
Well, and I tell you what, I think that we're in a unique position because we have essentially secured the border in President Trump's second term. And now we can really look at the problems we have with legal immigration. And I would challenge you, if you get elected to the United States Senate, that my old boss, David Perdue, had a fantastic bill to fix legal immigration called the RAISE Act. I'm not going to expect you to know about it, but I would love to talk with you about it at another time, because we got to fix legal immigration because of the stories you're telling, just like you're telling about how in agriculture there's a certain need.
Yeah, but Martha, let's don't put the cart before the horse. I mean, just because the border's closed doesn't mean we have solved the crisis we're in right now. I mean, there are still thousands, probably even more than that, of illegal immigrants who are violent criminals who are trying to wreak havoc on our communities, and we need to keep fixing that problem. I mean, that's the most important thing, is keeping our communities safe. So just because nobody else is coming in, we can't ignore the fact of what the Biden administration did and what John Ossoff supported in letting all these undocumented people come in. We have no idea who they are, what their motives are, and that doesn't mean they're all bad, but there's a whole bunch of them trying to wreak havoc, and we need to get them out of here.
So I think you've been in this race roughly, a week at this point in time. You talked probably to a lot of people.
It doesn't feel that way because there's never been a candidate who's not a candidate and never been in politics get attacked more in a 3-week span.
So tell me what you've learned as you've gone around.
I think it's funny, on announcement day, we announced on Monday, and people are saying, man, I don't know anything about him. I feel like they're hiding him. And I'm like, good Lord, I've only announced today. I'm ready to get out and tell my message. So what have I learned? I think more than anything, I learned how much I'm really enjoying doing this, because it's something, I love helping people. I love learning about people. I love interacting with people, especially people that really don't think like me in a lot of ways, because you can learn from everybody. And so to try to be able to be someone that they want representing you in their state, leading them the way they want to lead, and try to help solve their problems, that energizes me every day.
Derek Dooley live in the studio. We got several questions for you, Derek. Thank you for being here.
All right, Martha, fire away.
Yeah, so John in Gainesville said, I like the idea of a conservative outsider, but I'm concerned Derek never supported Trump publicly until now. Can he tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I probably went 20 years, Martha, where I didn't vote for a president. And I was immersed in my job as a coach. I was putting all my energy on the players and their families and trying to make them better. But COVID changed me, all right? And, I saw things happen during COVID that I never thought I would see happen in our country. From the lawlessness that was going on, from all the government intervention and overreach and lack of transparency and censorship, the border pouring wide open, I could go on. And it really jarred me in a way that I said, I got to get my butt in the game in a little bit. And that's when I was so frustrated with leadership. We came back home. I supported Governor Kemp because I was so inspired by his leadership. I mean, what moral courage he showed during COVID to open our state up, open our parks up, and that takes leadership. And then voted for President Trump in 24. And so I'm proud of both of that. And that's what it is. I mean, I can't change what I did. I was just immersed in my job. It wasn't that I was not paying attention. But the COVID, when I saw what could happen, and we need to get more active in being a part of this change, that's what got me going. And that's what motivated me to do this.
Jeff in Oconee County said Mike Collins and Buddy Carter have been very accessible and visible around the state. Will we see the same from you?
I hope more so. Every Sunday night I get in my truck and I'm driving all over the state all week. And I've been doing it for the last 3 weeks, meeting with so many different groups. It's been fun to reconnect with so many old friends that I had over the years of being in Georgia. And then also meeting a lot of the new business leaders, law enforcement, community leaders, hardworking Georgians, everybody. And so I'm going to be out there as much as I can to roll up my sleeves. And that's important for me because, listen, you have to earn it. I mean, it's no different than football coaching. All right, nothing's going to get handed to you. You're not entitled to anything. You got to go out there and earn it. And I plan on doing that to the best of my abilities.
So this question doesn't have a name, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Your question,
anonymous. Yeah,
question for Coach Dooley. What's your argument that you deserve the job more than Mike Collins, who passed the Laken-Riley Act, and who most agree has been an effective member of Congress?
Well, listen, Mike, Buddy, and I, we just come from different worlds. And the Laken-Riley Act was great legislation. We needed it. But we got a lot more work to do as it relates to some of our immigration issues that we were talking about. And there's a lot more work to be done. But I'm not a typical politician. I mean, I have a lot of frustration with what's going on in D.C. I think too many people up there, they're up there too long, they do too little, they don't get enough results, and they make too much money. And I think they become more focused on their careers, their next reelection, their personal ambition, than they do serving the people of Georgia. And that's what I'm in this for. I'm not in this for some incredible political career. I'm here to serve the people of Georgia, listen to what they need, and have the leadership and moral courage to do what's right for them.
So I've written a column a couple of years ago about the Senate, and I called it Caucus Over Constituents, where the big problem, I think, with the U.S. Senate is they care more about the caucus than they do about their constituents. And you see that in Senator Ossoff a lot. I mean, I think he's a nice enough guy, all of that, but he hasn't voted with Georgia on a number of issues.
No, I mean, when you vote, 98% of your voting record is for the Biden administration, and then you turn around and everything you're doing now is resisting every bit of progress the Trump administration's making. I mean, there's no way he actually believes in these votes. I mean, I'm a common sense guy. I'm like, you can't actually believe that. If you do, then you definitely need to be out. And if you don't, it means you don't have the moral courage to stand up and say what's right. And that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't come from that kind of world.
So we had a question that came in and said, do you support Governor Kemp's Life Act, the abortion law to protect life?
Well, what I will say is that this issue has divided our country for my entire lifetime, and neither side budges. And so I stand firmly with President Trump and the Supreme Court that it's an issue that needs to be decided by the states. And the states are better equipped to get a bead on their people and what they want, and they can move a lot quicker than the federal government. So I'm a firm believer in that, and I'm glad President Trump and the Supreme Court pushed for that. And that's what Governor Kemp ran on, that's the legislator ran on, and that's what the people voted on.
So what do you want people to know about you? We've got about a minute and a half left. What do you want people to know the most about you?
I think the biggest thing, everybody tries to pigeonhole me into something. But I've been very blessed to have a tremendous amount of experiences in my lifetime. I've been a lawyer. I've been a head coach. I've been an athletic director, which is a whole nother job as far as a business standpoint and budget standpoint and staffing standpoint. I've had tremendous experiences over 30 years. And I think that equips me to better understand people, to better relate to people, to be better equipped to find common ground and find solutions. And so that's really what I'm about. It's not, oh, he's this or he's that. He's this, he's that. I think that I have a real breadth of experience that's going to help me be a great leader for our state.
If people want to help you, how can they do that?
DooleyForGeorgia.com. Martha, one of the most distasteful parts I'm learning, there are parts of this politics stuff I'm definitely learning. One of the most distasteful is probably the most important early on especially, and that's the fundraising piece. And so what I ask is, if you believe in what I'm doing and you believe in that we need a little change in D.C., please go to DooleyForGeorgia.com and donate, and I won't let you down. I promise you I won't let you down. More importantly, get your friends and family to donate as well.
Derek Dooley, thanks for being with me. The first interview, but we'll see you a lot.
First of many, Martha.
It's local radio, and that's why you're listening. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
We visited several times with Anat Sultan Dadon, who was the Consul General of Israel, and now we have a new one, and we wanted to bring him in today. Eitan Weiss is here with us today. He is the new Consul General for the Southeast from Israel. Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Martha, for having me. I'm really excited to be here and have this nice conversation with you.
So tell folks about you first.
Well, I'm an Israeli born and raised. Came to Atlanta 2 weeks ago. I've been to the Foreign Service for the past 18 years. This is my fourth diplomatic posting. My first was to Moscow, Russia, for 3 years in 2010. And since it wasn't cold enough for me there, I was sent to Ottawa, Canada, for another 3 years to freeze. And then returned back to Israel, stayed for a year, and then shipped out again to Los Angeles. I was there, the DCM, that's Deputy Chief. 4 years of fun during COVID, not an easy time, but it is what it is. Came back to Israel in 2021, and then filled the position of Director of the Export Control Department for almost 4 years now. And then got reassigned to Atlanta, and I'm really excited to be here.
So you were in Russia. That is so interesting because Russia also has a very challenging history as it relates to Jewish people. And tell us a little bit about that, especially since, we've got our president going to Alaska to meet with Putin.
I think, I was in Moscow between 2010 to 2013. It was an amazing, amazing experience. Russia is a beautiful country, really warm and hospitable people. And only when you live inside Russia for a couple of years, then you get to open up to these people, and you understand, they're people too. They have their own dreams, their own wishes and whatnot. And, putting aside politics is not an issue here, but it's definitely was an amazing, amazing experience to live there and see how everything runs there. And I think that everyone needs to go and visit and see, because in order to, better understand people, you need to live amongst them for a while. And I would always cherish the time I was there.
So I'm a Rotarian. As part of that, we had a delegation of Russian doctors come and visit us about 15 years ago. And we put one up in our home for that period of time because they were looking at the healthcare system. And it was such an eye-opening experience for me. I mean, we used a lot of Google Translate because he didn't speak much English, but it was a different view because Americans look at Gorbachev as this great guy. You know, a lot of Russians do not. They think he gave the farm away, if you will, to use an American phrase, you know. So it was great to be able to talk to somebody in that non-threatening way and hear their side of the story.
Yep, I definitely understand what you're saying because language, in a way, is a barrier. Culture is also a barrier, but, you know, we can basically build the bridge and bridge the gap once you understand the culture and, of course, the language. I had to learn how to speak Russian. Because I found out that in order for them to really give me a chance, I need to level with them and try to speak their own language. And it worked. Because, you know, once you open up to them and they open up to you, you find them really warm and really good people. And I think it's amazing.
So since September 11th, 2001, I've always asked people where they were on a particular day. Since October 7th has happened, it's been my practice to ask people about that too. So tell me what your day was like on October 7th.
It was horrible. I was at home with my kids. My wife was abroad. She went with a friend to Spain for a week of fun. And when it erupted, everyone, you know, I live in a kibbutz in the center of Israel. And everyone was literally scared of what may happen. I literally had to carry my sidearm with me inside my house because even though I live in the center of Israel, the police caught 14 illegal Palestinians from Gaza inside our kibbutz. I don't think they were terrorists, I don't think at all, but nonetheless, everyone was so scared. And those first few days were really, really nerve-wracking. And the next 2 days later, my wife came back, and the moment she landed, I joined immediately to the emergency forces of, you know, our kibbutz and literally volunteered to as you know, as a representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I volunteered to be a part of the first response team within the military and went with them and sat there for actually up until 2 months before I came to Atlanta. I was there 6 days a week, working hard, like nonstop, trying to do whatever we can to, you know, bring back the hostages and handle the situation.
So 240 some hostages were taken. I wasn't aware until several months later that many of the ones that were taken were dead when they were taken, that their bodies were taken, yes. Which is, you know, a whole nother travesty on another level. Then we now are where we have roughly about 50 that are left. We think 20 are alive. We saw the most horrific video a couple of weeks ago. And also what I want to remind people is this young man, along with, I think his brother, or it may have been someone else, at the last hostage release, he was taken thinking that they were going to get released, and then were told no, they weren't, and their captors filmed them getting this news. Mm-hmm. Well, but filming this news that no, we're not going to release you. And the pain, of course, and the emotion that they felt because of that. I mean, that's just not human, I mean, in my view. So where are we today on the hostages? Because there's a lot of talk about changes in policy and what the IDF is going to do, but also where are we today on the hostages?
So first of all, we need to remember one simple fact. We're dealing with a terrorist organization that has no value of human lives, not our lives, not even their own people. They'll do whatever they can to make us suffer. They know how Jews value their living and their dead. And they know exactly on which points to press in order to make us suffer. Now, in the past 2 years, we tried many, many times to reach some sort of an understanding and release the hostages. Sadly, Hamas was always at the end said no. Even when they said yes at the beginning, last minute they said, oops, no, because we will not relinquish our arms, we will not relinquish control of Gaza. They simply refuse. And again, we're talking about a deadly organization that will stop at nothing to see all Jews dead. Not just all Jews, because after they're done with us, they'll move on. They do not adhere or believe to the ideals of the Western world. and they'll do whatever they can to bring the world into darkness. And we will do whatever we can to prevent that from happening. Israel is the bastion of the free world in that region. And we are important to the Western world of keeping those negative and dark forces at bay. And that's what we're doing.
So over the past year and a half or so, I've spoken to several IDF spokespeople. David Perdue is one of the ones that I've spoken to more than once. And yes. I spoke with him after the friendly fire incident with two of the hostages that had gotten out. Terrible. And it was a terrible mistake. And we know about this because the IDF reported it, notified of the family, did their own investigation. And what I always challenge people, that when I have people that call in and say, you know, the IDF did this or that or the other thing, I will say, go back and look at their own records. They say when they do things right, they say when they do things wrong. If they do things wrong, they investigate and they hold people accountable.
Exactly.
You do not see that on the other side, okay, at all. But I think it's fair to say, and I'm going to say we because I think we're in this together, we are losing the PR war. You've got countries that should be with us that are saying they're going to recognize a Palestinian state in the General Assembly of the UN. And I say, what state? I mean, what are you going to recognize? I don't know. I do think there is something to this kind of time frame that we've got between now and that meeting, that I think there could be some opportunity to be able to get to a ceasefire. So just your thoughts on the PR war as well as where we are today.
So first of all, we need to stress that we and let's say our adversary, our enemy, we do not exist on the same plane of values. We stick and adhere to the truth, even if we made mistakes, and I'm sure we made a lot of them. I'm sure we'll make more in the future. We take full responsibility and put people behind bars if needed, if we make these mistakes. And our adversaries are doing the opposite. They're doing whatever they can to lie, to steal, to cheat, to kill, because they don't believe in the same values we do.
To rape?
Even that.
Yes.
And worse than that. We are basically dealing with fundamentalist Islam, the nastiest version of it, and they don't care about anything but to kill. That's the only thing we need to remember. And the mere comparison of putting us and them on the same plane makes me sick. Because we need to remind people that these are terrorists, these are bad people, and whenever I see some media outlet, you know, they're quoting this director of a hospital or this minister or that minister from Hamas, it's like, guys, you're giving a prize to terror because you're listening to these liars. And I witnessed with my own eyes the lies, and I saw with my own eyes the fake news that they're pushing out there. And I can tell you that in military history, there wasn't a situation that currently exists in Gaza where a combatant force has to deal with such a terrible enemy that doesn't respect the value of life. You cannot fight against that enemy because you cannot basically bring him to submission because he wants to kill everyone, including himself. Really, really difficult to fight against it. And we're writing the textbook as it happens. And sitting there in the rooms, shoulder to shoulder with the officers and the great soldiers that we have, I saw with my own eyes how every decision, every bullet, every missile fired had to go through specific protocols, making sure we're not violating any international law, we're not violating any other law that may be, you know, at bay. And before the order is given, and I saw what happens when a mistake was done. When a mistake was done, I saw the investigations. I saw everyone, you know, stop everything. Let's see what happens. Let's investigate. And if someone was found, you know, to blame at something, they do the investigation. Needed so, that guy will go to prison. Simple as that. There's no other example of a military operating in these, you know, situations, these conditions. And I think that, again, we're writing the textbooks as things happen. Now, in regards of the PR, at the end of the day, again, I remind you, we're dealing with liars. We're dealing with people who have no values, not the same as we do. And they have no problem faking images, faking stories. Everyone remembers what happened 2 weeks ago. New York Times published an image of a young boy, Muhammad Ma'touk is his name, skinny and whatnot. And they said, look at this boy, he's starving to death because of Israel. That's a big lie. 2 days later, the New York Times, after they exposed the truth that actually he had some genetic condition, had nothing to do with it, no starving, nothing, they apologized. Now, their apology means nothing because they publish it in a really, really, you know, the end of the newspaper next to the obituary, whatever. all I'm saying is this. Media, it's extremely easy for them to fall in the trap of those lies, and they're not investigating properly. They're not doing their job, and that's extremely shameful to me.
I know you got a chance to visit with Joey Sommer a little while ago, and he has been maintaining this remembrance. I don't want to call it a memorial because they're not all dead, okay? But this remembrance to the hostages in our community since very close to the October 7th date. So I'm glad you got to meet him.
Absolutely. I was really excited to meet Jimmy. I think that his
Joey.
Joey, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you for that. It's extremely important to meet Joey because I think that what he did really touches my heart, because in a place that's so far from Israel, with a really small yet strong community, he managed to build a nice, not the right wording, right? But managed to build a site through which people can, look on their day-to-day life when they go to work, go home, commute, whatever, and they suddenly see images of innocent people who are being, held by an evil organization. And suddenly they pause for a second and they think about it. And to me, it's amazing because we need to keep this alive at people's minds until all the hostages will be released.
One of the more hopeful stories, I think, was the rescue of the hostage that I believe he was Bedouin or he was some kind of Muslim that lived in Israel.
Yes.
And he was interviewed, and he said, and it was a translation, so I hope I'm getting it right, but he said something like, I heard people speaking Hebrew, and so I knew I was going to be okay. And it goes to show you go to the lengths for anyone who was in that position, not just Jews.
That's exactly the point. Because people, when they think about Israel, the majority think the Jewish state. It is the Jewish state. But more than 20% of the Israeli population are non-Jews. They're Muslim, Christians, and other faiths. And everyone is just the same as the other. If you're a Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, we don't care. You're an Israeli, and we will do whatever we can for you.
So what are there restrictions if you're not Jewish, say service in the IDF, other things like that? How are there restrictions?
I wouldn't call those restrictions because on the one hand, Israel has a mandatory, let's say, service law. You have to go to the army. But recognizing the sensitivities with our Israeli citizens, the non-Jewish Israeli citizens, it would be, I would say, unresponsive on our end, or not responsible enough to basically force them to go into the military and put them in a scenario where they will have to fight their family members in Gaza or in the West Bank, because again, a lot of them have family members there. It's not mandatory. If they want to volunteer, they can volunteer. And actually, a lot of the non-Jewish communities do volunteer to the military service. The Druze, Christian Arabs, even Muslim Arabs, Bedouin, they volunteer to the army, and they can do that if they want to, but we do not force them.
Now, there was a story about a company called SodaStream that was based, I believe, originally in the West Bank. Do you know that story? Because I've heard it different ways. Can you tell folks about that?
So basically, SodaStream, a big company that manufactures, pop and, soda water and whatnot. So they had a facility in the West Bank where they basically had Palestinians and Israelis work together on the assembly line, building the product, creating
good jobs. Money.
They made a lot of money. I mean, when you look at the West Bank, it's sadly they do not make high wages. Working conditions are not as good as they would have been in Israel because we have laws and we have regulations. You have to adhere to them. You have to pay well. You have to give benefits and whatnot, Social Security and whatnot. So this the company opened this facility in the West Bank to give an opportunity for coexistence between Jews, Israelis, and Arabs, and it was amazing. Now, sadly, because of international pressure from all sorts of BDS organizations and groups, they had to close that shop. And what happened in return? A lot of Palestinians lost their job, lost their income. So actually, because of those organizations, they're actually making the Palestinians suffer and sending them to poverty. And that's extremely sad.
Yeah, I thought that was such an amazing story because it's a capitalist story, right? It's a story about a guy saying he wanted to do something better with the job that he had, and then it didn't. And then governments and people that don't know very much got in the way.
Exactly. I mean, it's someone who wanted to say, I want to use my abilities, my wealth, my business to help bring people together to build the future. And then everyone came and tore it out because they don't want that.
So what are your goals here in Atlanta?
Well, first of all, my goals are, to get to meet great people like yourselves and the community that lives here, and tell them that, Israel sent someone who's friendly to you and that definitely would like to bolster the relationship between my people, your people, on business, on economy, and whatnot. Of course, community is also extremely important. And I would appreciate, building those relationships. Anat, by the way, did an amazing job here. And I'm really happy that she did such an amazing job, because it makes my life a bit easier simply to slip into her high heels, even though I don't really look well in high heels. But nonetheless, to continue the great work and make the relationship thrive.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us today. It was great to talk to you. I think this is going to be the first of many discussions we're going to have. You know that we're always available to talk about it. But I'm going on my first trip to Israel in November. I'm very excited about that, and so I'm looking forward to understanding everything better.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm sure you're going to have an amazing experience in Israel, and I'm looking forward to seeing you and speaking with you again.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.